bada boom. Hello, we're back for the second half of this whole shebang. Um, the name of the game is Voloheen, Winds of War. The name of the episode is Red Sky, being dungeon mastered by Drew, none other than the magnificent Drew. When we last left our characters, they had just met up with this contingent of dwarves that are holed up in the citadel. We got some very useful information about what they're planning on doing here and what the opposing side is planning on doing here. And we're just kind of trying to get out and check up on the other side, I guess. Try and go like sneak up on them or something. And Asa Eridu is Beridu, and he's peeing on a dwarf right now, unbeknownst to Eigner. And Eigner will just say, "Oh, Bartholomew, oh, you're such a silly little pup."
You're probably quite aware that the bear is peeing, since it probably suddenly smells like bear urine.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I was just joking when I said I was gonna take you out for a tinkle, and here you are, tinkling away.
The highly trained dwarves do not move. As much as some of it's bound to be trickling through, maybe getting into the beard, they do not move.
Hardcore.
Props on them. I mean,
Yeah,
damn.
for real. All right, Bartholomew, I suppose we shall be getting on with it. So, Beridu and Egner will start slowly walking out over in that direction.
Okay. So this is going to be a couple of hours trek across the island. It is slow going, high winds, lots of snow. I'm not going to require any checks for this. You guys are well, protected. You've got your warm clothing and whatnot. So that's absolutely fine.
Mm-hmm.
With the exception being, when you get to just past the halfway point,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you whether you're taking. Are you climbing to the top of the central hill of the island and looking down, or are you gonna just scoot around one of the sides?
Well,
Scoot off to the side. I will, at least.
well, while we talk about it, Egner's actually, and by this point, so just to be clear, we only had to use the one use of the spells to keep up the disguises.
Correct.
Oh yeah, so we only had to do that. So we got away. Everything faded. Egner's back to his normal self. Eridu's not Beridu anymore, unfortunately. And this
He
is
seems a little distraught at that.
yeah,
The
understandably,
cold.
understandably so. So Eigner will take out of his bag of holding the jar that he bought off of what's his butt, the Dragonborn. Is it?
Yep.
Is it Skiskar or something?
Siskar.
Siskar. I was
Yes.
pretty close.
The peppers.
The peppers. Yeah, and he'll open it and he'll give it a nice smell, and it'll like burn the inside of his nose, just giving it a nice smell in there, and he'll go, oh, oh. All right. Well, I'm going to have one of these. I think this is a good time for it. I don't know if either of you are interested at all, but here goes nothing.
All right. Do you recall the instructions from Siskar that it is to be held?
Oh, held under the
under-
tongue. Don't
the
bite
tongue.
it. Yeah, don't bite
Yes.
it. Yeah.
You put it under your tongue, and it is incredibly spicy. It also,
Love it.
you can feel it numbing your mouth,
Mhm.
but you also feel a wave of warmth move
Mhm.
through your entire body. It feels as though you're in a spring meadow
Mm.
in terms of temperature. You suddenly feel like there is no impediment to your
Mhm.
motion at all.
There we go.
Everything's just suddenly really comfortable.
There we go.
Just talking is a bit difficult.
Wow, you're really good. really good. Do you want one? You want one?
Yeah, Eridu will take one
Okay.
and
Yeah.
he'll put it under his tongue as well. And with the
Thiala?
cold and the wind,
Okay.
he's been licking his lips this whole time, just with the chappness of it. And after putting it in there, just instinctively he licks his lips again, and then is suddenly just overcome with the burning spice on his lips, almost spitting the whole thing out.
Alright, so that's 2 peppers down, and then we'll talk about, do you want to go up or do you want to go around?
Well, I'm going around because I have no intention of being seen, and the best way to be seen is to be standing like an asshole on top of a hill.
Well, yeah, you're right about that. So,
Love it.
yeah, so
Could you turn me into a bear again?
I mean, I can, but I'd hate to burn it for no reason.
Well, I mean, we could attack them with bear claws.
Right, I get that, but like,
Eridu 2, Flurry of Claws.
if we need to use it again to, like, trick my old friend into thinking that you're a bear so he doesn't know that, well, we tricked him.
Right. Good
I kind
thinking.
of need that available. It's already bad enough that we have someone not acting like a dwarf at all. I don't need him to think that or to know that the bear is not a bear, and it is in fact an elf who's probably potentially a spy in his eyes.
Fair enough. Yes, and
Fair enough.
I won't need it with these people.
Yes.
So, Eigner will make this suggestion. First, he will reach out a hand and grab Thiala's shoulder, and Thiala feels a rush of energy coming in through her shoulder. There's a slight warm touch, and then that warmth cools slightly. And Eigner says, Yarana sends her blessing to you. I suggest that you take the point. Go ahead of us. Be my eyes.
Just swallow your pepper.
So yeah, he says all that, but it sounds really silly.
Okay, so no offense, because she really can't understand what you're saying. So I just go, no offense, not interested, but I'm gonna go ahead and take the lead. Okay.
Wow. That's what I wanted this whole time.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. Okay, I'm glad that we're
I
on
just
the
don't
same.
like humans.
Alright, so Thiala's in the lead. Thiala's in the lead. She's got advantage on her stealth checks for an hour because trickery domain is the sickest domain for a cleric, dude. That's what I'm saying.
Trickery domain is the sickery domain.
Sickery, dude. It's the
That's a word.
sickeriest.
You heard it here on Roll for Mischief. Sickery is a word.
It is now.
It is a
Make up
perfectly
shit.
cromulent word.
Okay.
Cromulent. Wait, what?
Simpsons reference.
Oh, for sure.
Does no one get Simpsons references
Well,
anymore?
I
Am I that old?
I didn't
I
get that one.
Watched
No,
The
nobody does
Simpsons
either.
and a number of years that would make you feel old.
Wow. Well, it is from one of the early seasons. It's when there's the whole Jebediah Springfield thing, and they're watching that documentary, and it's like, oh, it embiggens the soul, and they're complaining that it's like, embiggens isn't a word; it's a perfectly cromulent word. What are you on about?
Do not remember that at all.
Biggins. Well,
Wow.
no, it sounds familiar now.
26.
Cromulent.
With your advanced stealth thing, advantaged stealth. Okay, so not
15 plus 11.
26.
Using all that advanced stealth.
Yeah, I could add a 4 to that if you want for me to get 30 stealth.
I think the 30 to gather information was perfectly fine. The 26 to stealth will be serviceable. Okay, so
Be
you
serviceable.
guys.
Well, no, I
shifting
rolled a 4 on my on a D4. If you wanted to give me guidance, is why I said +4 because it was 26.
Yeah. I imagine there was a source for the +4, but yeah, I rolled a 14, and these guys only get a +6, so you're fine. So in fact, even if they got a 19, they wouldn't have seen you.
Damn, dude.
So you guys are moving around the west side of the island, avoiding some of the heavier winds coming in from the east. You move forward, and when you get to the end of a ridge, you get a slight dip down into one of these snowdrifts, and ahead you can see distant torchlights or lanterns, most likely. Just dim orange specks on the horizon through the thick mist. It is also at this point that you realize that to your right, on the western embankment of the hill, there is a village, or at least the structures representing one. A few homesteads, fences. The mist is obfuscating a lot of things here, but it looks like at one point, ruined though it is now, there was a settlement.
Okay. How far away is it from the fortress? I mean, is it like?
It's pretty much like exactly halfway, so it's a mile and a half from the fortress.
Okay.
AI
Does it look like a farming town, or is it like what kind of town does it look like?
May I attempt a history check to
Yes,
see if
you
I
may attempt a
understand this?
history check.
And I am still on disadvantage, correct?
Yes, you're still
Go
exhausted.
ahead and take a thing.
Bardic thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, these rolls are not great. That's an 11.
With the D8?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Eridu's able to recall that
Rolled
this island did have a village. It was primarily a port town of sorts, something to help deal with the stuff coming on and off the island. It didn't have a lot of people, but a few families started settling down there to maintain the contingent that would occupy the citadel. But all of a sudden, they were wiped out. That no one knows exactly what happened to the village.
Basically, Roanoke situation.
Yeah, he also seemed to recall that the village didn't. It sprung up out of nowhere in the first place. Like the whole town got there, and then it was there, and a village somewhere else across the world had completely vanished. He's not sure if he's getting his metaphors mixed up. It's all these historical villages, after a while, they all sort of take on the same mythologies, and I mean, civilizations always disappear without reason. That's just
It's
what
as if he
happens.
just watched the last episode, or one like he's watching this season of Star Trek Discovery or something.
He's pretty sure he's just he's starting to doubt that his factual knowledge is correct. Actually, he might have read that.
But yeah, from what Thiala can see, it looks like the village was used to just store things. You've got a few large warehouse type buildings, a few like minor like sheds and barns for maybe like personal livestock,
Right.
but nothing major. It doesn't look like this town produced anything.
Okay, so it's like basically just a port for the Citadel, basically. Okay. No reason. I mean, everyone can see that, so no reason to say my thoughts about that.
I can't see anything, dude. keep
Well,
forgetting.
unless you ask, I'm not going to bother because Thiala's still getting. It's going to take a very long time for Thiala to get used to the idea that you're blind.
Sure. Maybe Thiala's
Because
just being
she's not like she's hanging out the
insensitive.
hall.
Is Thiala just being
Eridu's getting super excited,
insensitive?
thinking that he discovered a village that went missing, a couple hundred years ago, and then he sort of gets downtrodden when he realizes that he's probably wrong.
Probably wrong.
Okay. Does it look like there are any houses that are viable?
None that would offer great protection from the elements, but certainly that would serve well as hiding places.
What about if we were to pitch tents in?
Then yeah, like they serve well as windbreakers. There's plenty of structures that still have the walls. It's just a lot of the roofs have started to falter.
Okay, so yeah, so we can set up tents in the houses, and then or some kind of tarp situation. Or use the tents as kind of like a tarp.
Hate to be consistent or whatever, but we did leave all of our tent stuff back in that nook where the boat is.
Right, but we're gonna
No
can
consistency.
go back and grab them. It's not like they disappeared.
Well, okay, yeah, sure,
But that's just a thought.
yeah,
Because we're going to need to long rest at some point. So
yeah.
and it's basically what 10 o'clock in the morning right now, maybe 11 o'clock at the latest. So because we got up in the morning, it took us half an hour to get out of the hole. We walked a while to get to the Citadel. We're there for less than an hour and have headed out. So we'll say maybe at most 2 hours to get there. So I figure give or take 10 to 11 o'clock.
That's about right.
I don't know why. I'm really good at keeping track of D&D time. It's kind of weird and stupid, but
okay.
So yeah, I guess we'll continue on. I'll take note of the fact that this is a possibility for some kind of shelter situation.
Okay.
And that's better than a hole in the ground, and
Okay.
we'll move on.
So moving further north to where these lights were in the mist.
Right.
Okay. As you move ever closer, taking advantage of every mound of snow that you can, you see that the land is starting to flatten out and decline slightly. You start to see shapes in the mist in the distance. You can only see up to about 150 feet in front of you. The mist and snow is just thickening up so much. The wind howling right above you with the occasional note of music hanging on it.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna hey, give me one of those or I'm just gonna basically ask for a blessing of the trickster, and then hey, do you guys? I'm starting to see people. It's probably best if I go ahead by myself and see if I can see what's going on.
Eigner will touch you on your shoulder again and say, "Go with grace, my child."
Okay, well, I almost understood that, so we're getting somewhere.
Eridu is going to take the pepper out of his mouth. Yes, maybe Eigner and I should investigate this town a little more. Make sure that it is in fact deserted.
That sounds like a good idea.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thiala, give me another stealth check.
I assumed as much. 30.
Jesus.
I disappear from existence.
Trickery, trickery, sickery.
It's a pity that I'm not Garrus. I'd be able to fucking add that whatchamacallit, pass without trace and just
Oh, yeah, the extra +10.
yeah.
Um,
Ghost like.
what is Eridu's passive perception? Because it was 13 when he was a polar bear.
Right. It is better as a Hugh elf. Hugh elf.
Hugh elf.
17.
Right. And Eigner's was 15?
Oh
Aaron
no,
says?
it's 21 when it's
Oh,
based
it's
on.
21.
It's 21 when it's based on anything but sight. If it's based on sight, I automatically fail.
Yes. In that case, Eigner automatically fails. But Eridu,
Yay!
Eridu, as you and Eigner return to this village, you see shapes moving around, humanoid figures moving around this town. You see some of them meet, talk to each other, and move away, but you can't hear anything. You can't smell anything. They don't make any impressions in the snow.
Huh.
Wait, so wait, do they hold on? Do they not? Does Eridu not smell or hear anything because there is nothing to hear or smell, or is he just not as good at hearing or smelling as I am?
Eigner hears nothing, smells nothing.
No, why would you create these creatures that Eigner can't even sense at all?
The only thing that Eigner can sense is damp wood.
Oof.
Good thing I have a high charisma save because I think I know what this is, and I just fought them literally on Friday in my Friday game.
Word. Well,
Eridu is going to turn to Eigner and say, Eigner, I think that we have maybe some elves or something like that in this village. They seem to be not making any impressions on the snow.
Eridu.
With the cold and the pepper, he's not putting it together that they might in fact be some kind of spectral thing, because I rolled a 5 on my religion check.
Eridu. I smell nothing. I hear nothing. As far as I know, there is nothing in front of us.
But I see them. There are people in this village moving around. They are stopping. They are interacting.
I believe it's a trick of your eyes. The sighted rely too much on their sight, Eridu.
I love how Eigner's just suddenly become this wise old ninja master.
Yeah.
Right?
Blind for like a hot second.
Oh yeah. Hey, no, he's been.
Will you roll me a persuasion check?
Will I roll you?
Yeah.
Wait, how much am I persuading you? Is that?
I want to see if Eridu is gonna fall, like if he's gonna take Eigner to his word and like okay, or if he's gonna.
With a +1, that's 14.
Okay, so mine actually was a 15. No, hold on, mine's 13.
Okay.
So
you're persuaded.
Yeah. I'm gonna nod that you can't see, and you might be right. Perhaps there is really nothing there. It is tricky in this weather.
I've dealt. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll say that you guys are a good 50 to 60 feet away from the edge of this village at this point, and so similar distances and further from any of these figures. But if you do wish to approach closer, by all means, let me know if you do.
I believe, given what I've just been persuaded to think, I will continue with investigating the village as I had said earlier. So I'm going to keep moving forward.
And I will be following the crunchy footsteps of Eridu in front of me, and I'll just keep saying some stuff like, I've dealt with more than enough illusions in my day to know that you can't trust everything that you see. You must rely. Bless you, sir. You must rely on everything else that your body has to offer. Only then can you truly see the world. and he's just playing off his like inability to like perceive these things as like, no, I'm right, they're illusions, like,
I'm super wise and all
I'm
knowing
so
now.
wise, I mean, like, yeah, that's how
Uh,
he's handling it.
Skipping
You
over
know,
to Thiala, leaving you guys to sort of edge closer to this
well,
village.
Eridu was just going to inform Eigner that his life among the druids seems to have changed him, have given him a perspective of wisdom that Eridu doesn't seem to have at the moment.
Not the druids, Yarana. It was her.
Oh, interesting.
She is interesting.
You're interesting, declares Asa.
Your mom.
It's
All
a
right,
wonderful
sorry,
human
sorry.
being.
Back to Thiala.
So-
Take it.
Thiala, moving closer towards these lights to the north, another mile trekked through this howling wind and snow. She manages to find that these shapes in the mist, they are wagons. There is one large structure covered in a tarp, and there are dozens of figures moving around, humanoid. Lots of lanterns being hung on various things.
Right. And so I'm going to just state this. I'm kind of assuming, especially for Thiala, it would be important for her to get white. She's a soldier. She's like that kind of like, she's always looking to blend in. Like, except for when she was like in urban environments and whatever, like it's less important for her to blend in because it like, you're not like, there's no brick camo, but she's wearing white cold weather gear essentially.
Yeah.
It's not like full on camo, but it is white, so it makes it harder to see. And this also plays into the narrative of a 30 fucking stealth check. She's going to approach I'm going to approach and kind of go like maybe underneath a wagon or kind of like basically sneak around as best as I can to be able to see as much as I can to get a good sense of what is going on, but making sure that I am careful to not be seen. And to not be cornered so I could be seen, like to not go too far in where I could be cornered and have no way of getting out without being seen.
Okay. So, if Thiala could give an intelligence-based investigation check.
It doesn't matter. It's a 2 on the die, so 8.
Okay. So you're able to see that a lot of the people moving around also heavy gear. You can't determine who exactly is what race or affiliation. Under the tarp is the device, the large mechanical dragon.
Right.
They are slowly pulling it across the ice towards the hill in the center of the island. You get the occasional shout and order to tighten something up, go and secure something. The wind is really battering these wagons. There are a few figures that you begin to get a sense of familiarity around while you're sneaking around. And you are sneaking around very ably, dashing through the snow during one massive gust of wind that batters the side of a wagon and takes it off some of its wheels. All eyes turn towards it and start trying to push against it. You dive underneath the wagon as it gets lowered and quickly push yourself up and hold onto the axles,
Right.
just as it
Badass.
lowers back down again. And so you're able to travel along with it. Yeah. Hear a lot of this. When they stop to go and check a couple of things, which they do fairly frequently to let the granted heavily barded and heavy set Shire horses that are pulling these wagons, they stop to let them rest very frequently. You're able to nip between various wagons. You find that hiding pressed up against one wagon, while a lot of people are distracted trying to secure the tarp covering this dragon tank. Peer in, and you see, warming themselves by an open lantern, an oil lantern, are some familiar figures.
Okay.
Uh,
Do we investigate this one now?
no. You recognize Alton, because if memory serves, Thiala...
She saw them.
She saw them both in the vision.
Right.
And
So she saw.
Wait.
As far as, okay. So if Alton is on there as well.
On is there as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So in Thiala's mind, she sees the hot one and the dumb one.
Wait, who's the hot one and who's the dumb one? I can't tell.
The
So,
hot
yes.
one's Alton.
So, On and Alton are sat there along with a dragonborn.
Okay.
Um,
That I wouldn't know.
So yes, sat there. The dragonborn has bright, shiny scales. In the light, they look like a hue between bronze and red.
Okay.
It's very, very orange inside the wagon. But they are talking in hushed whispers. On is sort of shining in the light a piece of broken glass. It's very reflective, like a piece of mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentions the name Eridu.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of it is lost to the wind. You're unable to pick up the rest of the conversation. And then you note that everyone's starting to move back to their positions. And so, quickly, stealthily, you move between a few wagons. And then just as a figure rounds a corner, you stand confidently, grab a rope, untie it, and quickly re-tie it to the side of a wagon as a patrol moves right past you and ignores you, assuming you're part of the group.
Hiding in plain sight. That's a 30. That's a 30 stealth check. Is
30.
hiding in plain sight.
Well, it's really hard to see people, so like dark skin would be hard to pick out. It could look.
Yeah, I'd imagine you'd pretty much be.
Yeah.
You know.
Doing
It would
that.
look pretty much like.
And having like
this is the
a
shadow.
hood or a robe up wouldn't be that bizarre anyway because of the cold.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
And then, like I said, it would just be like it's hard to see, so you're gonna see more shadow than you are person anyway. So, okay, I am going to. I'm going to not concern myself with that for right now. With Eridu, what I want to do is I want to go back to this mechanical beast that I saw, and that is of primary concern. And I am going to go into the tarp, hide in it, and then I am going to find a piece of it, and this will probably require another investigation, but I want to find a piece of it that I feel is going to be the weakest link. And that is, if I can, that is also not very noticeable. And I am going to, or not very noticeable without deep inspection. And I am going to heat metal and weaken the part to potentially failure. And if I have to burn a few spell slots on that, I can. How many of these that I should need?
Let's roll for another investigation check. We'll keep the stealth check, but roll for the investigation.
Okay. 17 this time.
17 for. That's a lot better. Right.
Yes. Well, not 8 is a lot better.
Yes. So as you dip under the tarp, you see that this thing is sat on a dolly, basically. It's
Right.
just a set of wheels being pulled by soldiers by ropes.
Right.
And when you get in here, you see that there is a lot of this thing to take in. So you start diligently, and as a soldier, quickly identifying what is connected to what, how this thing moves, and so you're spending the next half hour or so, while this thing's moving around, just checking it all out and seeing what ticks. Meanwhile, Eigner and Eridu moving towards this village. As Eridu gets closer, a few of these figures are moving close, but ignoring you guys entirely. They do not seem to be phased by your presence. You can make out vague shapes to their faces, but nothing that would be overly identifiable. They appear to almost be made of the mist itself, just swirling in a different direction. They're more just very vague humanoid shapes.
As we're walking and seeing this, I'm gonna kind of lean in towards Agner and say, Agner, I think you were wrong. I think we are dealing with some kind of specter, perhaps.
Spectre?
They're inches from us now, and I can't seem to make out any features on them. Way too close to just be an illusion or well, illusion possibly, but not a figment of my imagination, for sure.
Let me see if I can...
I don't think I can do that.
Well, no, I can't. You won't even allow me to use, like, turns of phrase anymore.
Eridu's covering Eigner's eyes the whole time.
You can see! He's actually been able to see all this while it's just Eridu's blinded him.
What Eigner meant to say is, I will seek guidance from Urana. And he will make a religion check. And this is just kind of like, I don't know, it could be kind of thought of as like, actually, will you allow me to make it a wisdom-based religion check? Because he's more trying to like get a sense from Urana, like a direct message of like, are these like just lost souls? Like, you know, or are they like malicious things? He's trying
you're
to,
trying
like,
to process a thing rather than access stored knowledge.
Exactly.
That is more of a wisdom thing.
Sick.
Yeah, let's go for that.
So, I am proficient, and I do... Yes, that boosts it up a little better. I have a total of 12. Not a good roll. But, oh well.
Seeing how these things are moving, and definitely taking note of each other and not moving through each other, but moving through the occasional broken bit of wall or fence that's obviously been shifted out of its position from a long time ago. One of them moves up behind Eridu and moves right through him, behind him, without him even realizing. Eigner's only clue to this is just a slight gasp that Eridu might let out. The sense that Eigner gets just from taking in the feeling that he gets in this area, and there is a feeling, now that he's here, standing on the snow, he gets the sense there's something under the snow, just a few inches from him. There's some sense of unrest, but nothing violent. Nothing that's going to become violent, but the signs of some past evil.
These are wandering souls, Eridu. They're wandering because there is something keeping them here. There is some long-gone trauma, something that needs to be rectified. And Eigner, taking out his shield, will try and walk in the direction that the sense was giving him, and he'll kind of hunch down and he'll start to use his shield as a little snow plow, and he'll just try and kick up and clear as much area as possible, kind of going in the direction of where that sense was telling him.
Eridu can see that Eigner's digging. As Eigner is digging, a lot of the figures have slowed their movements and started looking in one direction, not at Eigner, although initially Eridu might think so by looking at some of them towards the bottom of the hill, but they're looking towards the top of the hill. There's a flurry of wind and ice that crests the hill and starts crashing down, but you can't hear or feel any of this wind or any signs of like an avalanche or something, as much as it looks like it's coming down. And then you see silhouetted in the mist two large wings that beat down, and as they do, all the ghostly figures lean over quickly and collapse down into the snow, all of them disappearing. At that moment, Eigner feels a difference in texture. He is no longer digging through snow. Lifting his shield up, he gets a faint scent of old, frozen, slow to decompose, but still decomposing flesh. Eridu can see from his vantage point there is a dead body there, centuries old, though trapped in the ice. It is blackened, but it is beyond saving.
Wow. Well, Eigner is being, he's just getting very like swept up in this moment. Like as soon as he accessed the divine sense that Yrana granted him, it's like he's been moving in this kind of like programmed state. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like he has a lot of control over his actions. And as soon as he finds the dead body, he reaches into his bag of holding and pulls out some pretty like modest little supplies that he's picked up that like any traveling cleric would have. Just essentially like the basic. There's like a censer with some incense, and there's like maybe a candle, but it's not really practical to light a candle in the crazy cold wind or whatever. But he can definitely get some incense going on, and maybe some like oils and just all sorts of that kind of stuff. And he starts to, without really talking to Eridu very much, he starts to conduct a ceremony, and he's going to use the ritual. Is a cleric spell called ceremony, and I'm going to do the funeral rite. I touch one corpse, and for the next 7 days, the target can't become undead by any means short of a wish spell. So I'm not doing it for like any kind of mechanical thing, but it's just more like, like actually he's trying to do this affirmation, like he's acting within Yrana's influence, finds a dead body, like this is the appropriate thing that Yrana would want him to do, is to like honor and sanctify this dead body and hopefully put it to rest.
While you're conducting the ritual, Eridu will note that after 10 minutes go by, the figures start up again. But after a few minutes of the figures moving around, he sees that they are moving around exactly as they did before. It is as though a loop has just started over again.
And in this moment, it finally clicks into Eridu what this town's name is, and the confusion he had between like fact and fiction sort of shifts away, and it all just kind of hits him like a ton of bricks. Like he's just witnessed what suddenly obliterated this population. and so he's going to start looking at the buildings, looking for signs of destruction in any sort of way. Um, being that he believes he just witnessed some kind of dragon attack, he's curious to see if there's anything on the buildings that would link to different types of dragon devastation. Burned away buildings, corroded
Yeah.
buildings, frozen buildings.
No dice roll necessary. Spending the time needed to have a look at this while Thiala's doing her thing.
Eigner.
And Agner's doing her thing.
Eigner's doing her thing.
Yep. While Eigner's doing his thing, Thiala's doing her thing. Eridu is having a look around, and he sees that there is plenty of evidence here, but not of any fire, no flames, no damage to the structures in such a way. A lot of the timbers have been forced apart. The buildings forced to endure a chilling cold, an onset of winter that they weren't designed for. There are also, inside some of the buildings, frozen bodies trapped in sculptures of ice. This was the work of a white dragon.
Certainly.
Not unlike Siskar, even though Siskar is a dragonborn. All right. Well, Eridu will come to Eigner as he's performing his ritual and say, I think I know what happened here. And I think that we should probably move fast with whatever it is you want to do. I do not know if the thing that caused this devastation is still here. But if it is, we probably should not be if it returns. Can I help you in any way?
Take the incense. Walk around in a wide circle. Complete a whole circle. Create a perimeter of this incense.
All right. I will do as I am told.
Eigner will start to, as the conclusion of the ritual gets there, he will start muttering some holy words. And again, this is not like he's reading off of any kind of text or holy book or anything like that. He's more like free-forming it. It actually sounds like he's speaking in tongues a little bit. And as a nice little flavor touch, perhaps he starts to pull out these different kind of sounds that are a little more guttural sounding, perhaps. It kind of has more of a sound like Undercommon would have, but he's not really like spouting off any particular words, just speaking in tongues. And as the ritual ends, it ends with him taking out a vial of holy water and taking some drops on his hands and sprinkling them on the body. And he stands up, feels Yarana's magic coursing through him, feels his purpose being fulfilled, acting as an instrument of his deity. And he turns over to Eridu and says, we are done here. I hope that these souls can find some sort of rest now.
Do the souls appear to be changed at all?
The sort of ghostly images of people start to diminish in number, but they still continue moving on. You note that two ghosts that move together and seem to have a silent conversation. One of them is no longer there, but the other maintains their part of the conversation. As you walked around with the incense, you didn't see a lot more of these bodies scattered around. But after a few more minutes of observing that these mist figures are being snuffed out, essentially, just as the dragon figure crests over the hill yet again, the final figure that's about to be decimated by this tidal wave of ice, snow, and dragon he snuffs away, disappears before he collapses into the snow, and along with him, the dragon and the wind. For now, it seems that everything's calm.
All right. Yeah. I'll just pat Eigner on the back and say, "You have done something good here."
It was not me. It was Yorana. I merely was the conduit.
Well, take a little bit of pride in what you have done yourself, because without you as a conduit, Urana would not have been able to work her miracle.
Very well.
Shall we seek a place to hide until Thiala returns?
Yes, yes. Whichever of these structures is the least damaged.
All right. I will look for whichever the structures is the least damaged and go to that one.
The least damaged is something that looked to be a warehouse. You see that there in the corner are two frozen children hugging a goat, also frozen.
Sad.
Obviously been there for centuries, but it is the most intact structure, and you can tell that they weren't got by the dragon. It was the cold weather and isolation that happened after. While you guys are scoping out that building, making sure everything's safe, Thiala is tinkering away with parts of this dragon thing, sort of just slight pushes and pulls to see how it all fits together and what's working with what. It is an incredibly complex device, something unlike anything Thiala's seen before.
Oh yeah.
She can identify that in the center of this thing's chest, there is a large metal thing, something that would take at least two people of amazing strength and durability to carry on their own.
Right.
It's the engine block, you know.
Yeah. And it's connected to a lot of the limbs and has this tube heading towards the head, inside which there is another device here with a crystal that seems to focus something. You note that there are a lot of runes inscribed. This isn't purely a mechanical device. There is a lot of magic flowing into this.
Okay.
There seems to be a lot of redundancy built in as well.
I have dispel magic.
Cool.
It's true. Is true.
So I can also pop dispel magics as well, which would be harder to detect.
True.
I can do both. Is what I'm saying.
You can see that the machine itself is heavily armored, and depending on how a weapon test goes, if they're able to make more of these things, there would at the very least be an incredibly intimidating force on the battlefield.
Right.
But it's unclear what capabilities they actually have. Presumably some sort of breath weapon amalgam. Not amalgam. Allegory thing. Some sort of...
I know what you're saying.
Yes.
Analog.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh,
You're welcome.
for some reason I just could not get...
Yeah. It took me a while too.
But yes, you can't see any one thing that could disable this thing. If you had longer, maybe a few days to look this thing over, you might be able to find a few points. But at the moment, it's bamboozling you. There's no clear way to disable this thing besides perhaps dispel magic.
Yeah, I can at least hit up the dispel magic, and so I'll hit up dispel magic. I'm sure I only need to do one of those, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Hold on, let me.
Oh no, you need to make an ability check.
Oh, interesting. It's
yeah.
higher. If I were to cast Identify, would I be able to identify the level of... let me see if it would. It would allow me to detect what spells are affecting the item and what they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I were to cast Identify as an action, not as a ritual, but as an actual full spell, could I know what level it is?
Seems seems like reading by the actual text of it, like you should be able to give you some information about. It
Or at
says you
least-
learn what the spells are that are affecting it.
Right.
You know.
Mm.
So that I would assume that would include information about the spell level.
Yeah.
Right. So,
So I'll
you're able
burn
to
and
cast
identify.
Identify. Yep.
Okay. And then this spell magic, what is it? What level is it?
So this is 8th level. The specific spell is Incendiary Cloud.
Okay. So burning a fourth,
Damn.
so that way I can get, because I think that helps, right?
No, well,
It doesn't know. It's
Okay, hold on.
You're thinking of like counters.
Oh no, you cast a spell using the spell for the. You automatically. Okay, so no, it doesn't help unless it's that level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll just make it a harder DC since it's a higher level spell. And I don't think there's anything.
Right, but I mean, me
boosting it.
casting at a higher level
Yeah.
doesn't seem to affect my ability to it doesn't drop the DC 1.
Nah, I don't think so.
It just says when you cast a spell using a spell of 4th level or higher, you automatically end the effects on the spell target if the spell's level is equal to or less than the level of the spell slot you use.
Oh yeah, so in that case, if you had an 8th level spell slot, you'd be able to use an 8th level spell slot to spell magic to automatically end the effect.
But if I had a 7th, it wouldn't do anything.
No.
That's right. Yeah.
So clearly, then a 3rd level of dispel magic. So then I need to roll. Make an ability check using my spellcasting ability. So then that would be +4. And I have to beat an 18.
Word.
No. I'm gonna try one more time.
Okay.
Oh shit!
You did identify other magics on it, but a lot of them are more defensive based.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is the main.
Right.
The main.
20.
Nice.
Hell yeah!
So, okay, so yeah, I dispel that, and then, I'm gonna just pop off a couple of heat metals and just weaken what I feel like perception-wise.
Sweep the leg, Johnny.
Yeah,
Well-
basically, with a 15 perception, what
Well,
I feel
well,
like I could do the most damage to.
When you cast your Identify and then dispelled the main weapon on this thing, the crystal sputters a little with its brightness and then dulls entirely. It's only at that point that you realize that it was emanating a small amount of light in the first place. Some of the runes glow a bright, hot pink and then recede back to the plain metal appearance. Then you start hearing shouts among the crowd, among the guards, and you hear a very loud dragonborn voice yell out, "Sabotage!"
Uh-oh, Spaghetti-O.
Dimension door, 500 feet, the way I came.
Yeah.
For real, though.
As you push off the side of this thing and flip backwards, you see the tarp get lifted at the bottom, and you see some feet just as you disappear into the dimension door that you
Right.
summoned behind you, just as you disappear, they lift the tarp and see no one's there.
Okay, so yeah, I'm fucking. I mean, 500 feet is enough where I can just start booking it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because everyone's now looking at this thing as well, so that's the perfect distraction. You're able to.
Right. I don't need to worry about stealth. There's a lot of shit going on. They're worried about the thing, and I'm fucking 500 feet away. So, I'm pretty much out of their range. So I'm just gonna fucking haul ass as
For
best
real.
as I can and get back to the village.
All right. Able to get to the village with no issues whatsoever. Eridu, Eigner, Thiala, you're now all in roughly the same area.
All right.
I smell Thiala coming from a mile away, and as soon as she enters the warehouse, I say, Thiala, what news?
Yeah. So that mechanical dragon.
Yes,
Um,
I know it well.
Well, yeah, I know that you know it well. I'm saying that it's done. I've disabled it. A little bit of sabotage.
Ah,
Um,
very well.
yeah, I took out its had this like crystal that was imbued with a spell, and I dispelled it. And now it's basically non-functional. At least currently, they probably will not be able to launch an attack. Unfortunately, they were notified of the sabotage. They had some kind of magical link to it somehow. How I don't know, but they had it. That means they're going to be looking for saboteurs. We are going to need to hide.
Okay.
Probably here's not safe.
Yes. Well,
Probably not.
Well, first of all, commendations are in order, Thiala. It's an incredible thing that you were able to do. Very well done.
Thank you.
Second of all, I believe we should try and find our little tent spot down the rabbit hole, as it were.
Yeah, I think that we should not. I don't want to go back to the fortress because I don't want to bring that on their heads.
Yes. Very
I'd
sensible.
rather go back down to our spot and maybe tomorrow talk about letting them know.
Yes.
Yes, that is a good plan.
Okay.
Let's be off then. This village needs its rest too.
Okay. Okay.
We'll explain along the way.
Okay.
So
And
heading.
of course,
Sorry, go on.
oh yeah, we're heading back to that camping area, and on the way we'll tell Thiala about the village that was cursed to relive this devastation over and over and over again, and how Eigner had cast this ritual to calm the spirits and end the cycle.
I want to, with a 17 survival, I want to make it fairly plainly obvious that the tracks go in our direction, not in the direction of the Citadel.
Okay.
So
you guys are heading back to the hole to climb back down.
right, yeah, we're gonna go back to the hole. I just want to make sure that, because one, I don't want to lead it back to my old friend and have it be ambushed, and two, it might behoove us later to have that be a safer space from with which to operate. So right now, I would rather them come into our traps than I would if they manage to find my trail in the first place, because I just like teleported 500 feet. I didn't like run from their camp.
Yeah, so it's fairly difficult for them to pick up a trail, but you want to make sure that if they do, it's...
Correct.
Yeah.
And being that they don't know about the dwarves, I'd rather it not get back to them quite yet. So,
as you guys approach your hole, you hear again, as you did when you first arrived. So it seems to be a daily occurrence. Another horrendous roar, like that of a dragon, but something that you assured yourselves before was just the natural wind going through holes in the ice.
right.
And it echoes across the entire island. You see that there is nothing impeding your descent down to your camp. You can safely get down there.
Okay. I'm gonna go with it would
Having seen that vision of the dragon coming and burning out or freezing out the village, I'm going to assume that it is the dragon and kind of urge everyone to move faster.
right.
Yeah.
And that's what I was just gonna say that. So I was gonna not the urge faster, but like not necessarily go faster, but it would seem that this is that dragon that you were talking about, and we are going to need to deal with that. Perhaps a temporary armistice is going to be necessary from both camps, depending on how old the dragon is. Since, as you guys have claimed, there are still dragons, and I kind of have to admit, hearing a massive roar like that is a compelling argument.
I would not prefer to get into a situation where we have to fight a dragon, but if there's no other choice, then we will need all the help we can get.
Yes. Unfortunately, I just took out a very useful tool in fighting it, but I think in the long term, it's better. We're better off.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can agree. And did the dwarves not say that they have something in their possession as well?
Yes, they did. But depending on how old the dragon is, from my... Hold on. With the 13, I think I know enough. I wouldn't know specifics, but I know that that they do become more powerful as they get older, and if it's a very old dragon, it would be something that we would need. That would be a serious threat.
Certainly.
Sorry.
Was there any sign of Alton and On at the camp?
Oh,
I guess
yeah.
I don't know that they're together.
You mean the hot one and the dumb one?
Yes.
Yeah, from the dreams, right?
I suppose.
Oh. Yeah,
You
no,
would
they
not
were...
have met them.
Huh?
I don't think you would have met them, so maybe you wouldn't know who you were looking for.
Well, I remember seeing them in the dreams, but, I mean, you guys said a name and Alton and On feel like it's... I remember that there was the hot one and the dumb one that I remember from the dreams, and...
At my wedding, right?
Yeah.
The guests
What
I
are you...
did not want.
Oh, yes, that's right. The division you told me about, Eigner.
Yes.
Indeed.
And so, being that that part of your purpose is to find them here, it seemed not an unreasonable connection to assume that the hot one and the dumb one were in fact Alton and On.
I somehow knew
So
that they would be here.
you saw them here then?
Oh yeah,
Right.
something. One the dumb one said your name, and he had glass. I didn't really hear much of it. I was far less concerned than I was about sabotaging the giant mechanical dragon.
I'm trying to recall if On ever mentioned anything to Eridu about that,
The
but
mirror.
I don't think he did. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't quite a mirror. It was glass, but it was very reflective, very close to glass, but not, or very close to a mirror, but not quite.
I'd say Thiala would probably recognize it as a broken bit of a mirror.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so yeah,
I
okay.
honestly can't recall.
I
if-
don't.
I don't
believe-
think.
I don't believe that.
Yeah,
you-
because I think On made that deal with that person on his own.
Yeah, it was
And
an
never-
under the table thing for sure.
Yeah, and I think he had mentioned something about, oh, I've got something that's gonna help me spy on Garth, but like at no point did he ever reveal it to them, because by the time he got it was also around the time that he left the party for good.
I think you might be right, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it
all
is
I know
longer
is-
ago than my brain is saying that it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like 4 or 5 episodes in.
Yeah,
Yeah. Dude.
because he got it during my episode,
Mm.
and then I don't think he had time to attune it to Garth before Josh's episode, and then after Josh's episode he left.
Yes.
Yeah. Because we had A Tale of Two Harbors, The Shadow of Peril, What Lies Beneath, Stormfront, Trust Falls, and
Which was Josh's.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think it was because Stormfront was yours.
Was mine. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's when Alton and On left.
Mm-hmm. Well, Stormfront is Trust Falls. It was still Alton, On, Eridu, and Eigner.
Yeah, it was. It
And
was
then
at the
after
end of
Trust
Scales of Power. It
Yeah,
was
but
at the
after
end of
Trust
that one.
Falls, Eridu made that comment about how he felt responsible for.
Well, no, it was because he said all the right things.
Yeah,
but he felt responsible for what's his name's death,
Akram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Akram's death, and On took that literally to mean that Eigner or Eridu made Alton's death happen.
Yeah, it
Or,
was Stormfront. He got
Progress.
the mirror. Trust Falls was the very next one, and then it was Scales of Power on and left. So yeah, he's not mentioned that he's got the mirror to anyone.
Mm.
All I know is he has
Yeah.
a mirror, but the fact that he was holding it specifically and said Eridu's name, that was of note enough, since that was the only thing that he was able to, or she was able to.
Yeah.
I was able
So in actual fact, out of all the party members, Thiala's the closest to knowing anything about this.
Yep.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
And even then, it takes knowledge of scrying tools and all that stuff. Not to mention, like, if you'd seen him looking at an actual mirror that you might have linked to a magical object, maybe, but a broken piece of glass,
right.
that could be just circumstantial.
And her knowledge base was not built in that kind of magic. She very
Right.
specifically was aimed elsewhere.
So just before we close out this session, then, as you guys get to your hole, are you guys going straight down, or like in light of anything? What's
Straight
the
down.
plan, the motivation? Yeah.
We're hiding.
Yeah.
We're hiding. I'm tapped from the kind of shit that I would need to fight a dragon, or to. And I don't want. And like I said, I would like to give. I would like to give time to before we go back to the fortress, before we have to eat crow and go talk to my friend.
Yeah.
And Darun, and kind of be like, hey, by the way, you know those disguises? That was, those were like, or what we were before is not who we are. Like, that's not who these two idiots are. And so, and sorry, dwarf guy that got peed on, that was my friend being an idiot. We're gonna have
What I
a lot
will
of-
say, to close out the episode, then, to give us more than an Empire Strikes Back ending, because we've had a few of those. Well, I suppose this is a little bit of an Empire Strikes Back ending.
Oh, God.
when you guys get to the base camp, you feel an even colder gust of wind coming in from the sort of ocean entrance than you normally would, and there are frost crystals, almost creating this jagged moor around the mouth. Although nothing serious, it's very thin bits of ice, but it's a lot of new growth. Heading to the edge and peering down, you see that the remains of the Remoraz and dozens of these eel-like fish creatures in mid-frenzied consumption of its body are frozen in one solid block of ice attached to the side of the island. And we'll end the session there.
Wow. Okay,
All right.
so our characters are doing another long rest?
Yeah, I'm gonna say I want to like find a way of blocking as much of that hole as I can, like by digging shit out. But then, yeah,
I can maybe just start by like setting up tarps, but yeah, like a more
right.
Yeah.
That way we can, and then long rest only because, not like we're going to sleep right away, but kind of like basically like planning and waiting for the next day. Because, like I said, all of those reasons that I said before, like I'm not just like doing one thing and long resting 2 hours later. This is a
no, I understand.
Yeah,
Plus,
we're just not doing anything for the evening.
Yeah, everything that you guys have been doing with the cold, the pressure, the heavy the garments that you're having to wear, that would have been tiring. Like half a day's work is the same as a day's work in this kind of environment.
Okay, then that's cool. So yeah, we'll long rest.
Sweet.
Yeah, so we go back, we rest, we talk, we plan.
Right.
All right.
All right. We'll handle all of that next session.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday to witness more of this episode DM'd by Drew called Red Sky. So far it's been cold. Really cold. Really very cold. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, come and join us next week and we'll continue on this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.
Bye.